Good evening, welcome to episode 4 of the Rugby Nats Chat Show. We've got a couple of things to talk about tonight, but first off we're going to start off with a very quick roundup of the results from the weekend.
Thanks, Paul. There was a number of interesting games. Darlington still top National 1 by virtue of beating Moseley, and then also had a bonus point in each game. Coventry are close on their heels, below them by a point, and beat Blackheath, the only other unbeaten side other than Darlington and Coventry. They beat them 37-10, so it was quite a convincing 6-try victory. But a side sneaking up, I know it's only 4 games gone, but a side speaking up, I think you identified Plymouth Albion.
Yeah. Well, it was Jack actually.
Yeah, so they're creeping into the frame now. They had a 68-point to 15 victory over Fyle on last Saturday, which puts them in 3rd place. And just to mention, the Bishop Stortford, they beat Rosslyn Park. They were newly promoted, and they're in 4th place. So very well done, Bishop Stortford.
Yeah, absolutely,
and
especially with being newly promoted.
Yeah, and for Andy Long in coaching them. National 2 North. Well, Tyndale are still there, but they've moved down to 2nd because just on a points difference, with Stourbridge now going into the lead. Stourbridge won at Wharfdale, where it's not an easy place to go and win on Saturday, 45 points to 10, and that's put them on top. So both of those sides are competing, but there's a pack below, and I think given the weeks to come, I think that will prove very, very interesting. In the south, well, Cinderford, they actually had quite a hard day at the office. They beat London Irish 29-21, but fair play to the Irish, resilient, showed a lot of courage, stuck at the task, and Cinderford had to work to get that win. There were rumours that Cinderford rested various players. I mean, if you've got a squad that large, then and you're able to do that, it's a wonderful luxury.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keep people fresh.
There's not many clubs that can do it, but
no. But let's not take it away from the Irish. The other one is Taunton. Again, they remain unbeaten now. They beat Wimbledon at Wimbledon, 42 points to 27. So it's Taunton and Cinderford at the top at the moment. If we went to the regional leagues, I think I'd like to pick up on something you said in episode 1 of the chat show, was that you felt some of the sides coming into the leagues are always dangerous.
Yes.
And certainly London is an illustration of that. Sidcup and Tring were both promoted this season. At the moment, Sidcup occupy top place, Tring are in 3rd, and Guernsey are in the division last year in 2nd, and all of those sides are unbeaten. So I think that's going to pan out to be quite a very, very competitive league. The same with the Midlands. There's been a little movement there. Newport continue to stay at the top, and then we have Peterborough Lions and also Birmingham Solihull chasing them again, all unbeaten. So somebody's got to give there. In the north, Lymm have gone into a slight lead. They've got 20 points now, 3 points ahead of Preston Grasshoppers and Hull and Ilkley. But all of those 4 sides are actually unbeaten. So again, it's a points difference which enables Lymm to occupy a top spot. There were 3 unbeaten sides in the southwest region. That Newton Abbott, they remained unbeaten. They're averaging 50-odd a game, 50-odd points. Very impressive. Dings Crusaders are still unbeaten. But Exmouth lost their unbeaten record, and that was away to Maidenhead. Now, I've mentioned over the last couple of weeks, Maidenhead have a very strong pack, and I think that is especially in the scrummage, and that has always been the Achilles heel of Exmouth. So, you're looking. Exmouth have got to try and sort that out somehow to stay up there, I think, in contention.
I read a match report there, and the coach from Exmouth said that it was hats off to Maidenhead. He felt it was a good performance and that they just didn't provide the opposition that they should have done.
No. And, it's a good win for Maidenhead. It's
definitely.
A good win for Maidenhead. Just something which interested me, again, in the lower divisions, because they've played less games, they start a little later. There's no discernible pattern on really who's top, who's dominating, etc. But I noticed at level 7 last Saturday, there were no matches for the Southern Counties.
No, there wasn't.
Is there a reason for that?
Well, it's really bizarre the way they've put the leagues together this year. we've got more weekends off than ever, and at Christmas, I think I'm right in saying we've got a month without a game. There is weekends off littered all over the place. I don't know whether that's as a result of them trying to flatten out the geography, the amount of journeys they've got to do. So there is only 14 in the league, not 16 that we're used to. So there is fewer games, but it really is quite bizarre. We're struggling to get used to it, to be honest.
Yeah, and I mean, we're going to talk about the RFU and their interest in club rugby, especially below level 5 in a moment. But I mean, I thought if you're going to have breaks, why don't you? September to me seems an ideal month.
Well, you get the best of the weather, the best of the ground, and all this.
And looking through here, that you've only played 2 matches in what will be 5 weeks, 4 weeks, sorry.
4 weeks,
yeah. Which, well, it doesn't bring the revenue in, does it?
No, it doesn't.
And,
no, clubs really struggle with that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's something they perhaps need to look at, about when they give teams these free weekends.
Personally, as someone who's got to sort of worry about a team and worry about a club, I would prefer to play a lot more rugby at the beginning of the season and the sort of Christmas and the period after Christmas when your pitches are struggling, you're waterlogged and all this. Have your rest then. But then some people say, "Oh, we've got an impetus going. I want to keep going." And I don't know, but
I think that's common sense personally. I mean, the day of the friendlies seem to have gone. Nobody wants to play unless it's a league weekend, and so the clubs are empty. The clubhouses are empty.
Yeah.
Great shame.
It is a great shame. You mentioned there that we're talking about something else tonight, which is paying players.
Yeah.
It's interesting in that you've sort of moved at the higher end of the league structure with your coaching experience and involvement with paid players, and my experience is lower, where it's not normal to pay players or not consistently pay players. But I want to bring up the new proposal that the RFU have brought out about paying players and introducing a whole sort of infrastructure behind that. I know you've had a chance to have a look at it, but what's your feelings on it, what the RFU are trying to do?
Well, I would like to know the reason behind it. I mean, are they endeavouring? There is an opening paragraph there which states that they want to basically bring back the old ethos and Corinthian spirit of rugby union.
Yeah.
They want to turn back the clock, or supposedly. I mean, I have perhaps a more cynical view on that, but I could well be wrong. But I mean, if they want to turn back the clock, what are you turning it back to? Are you turning it back to the days of sheer hypocrisy about the payment of players, boot money, small narrow-mindedness about the attitude towards rugby league, which obviously paid money, and the turning of the blind eye? I think it was Andy Hayden, the New Zealand All Black second row. I'm open for correction on this, but he used to have on his passport occupation rugby player, and yet he came over here to play rugby. So what was he doing? And this was in the glorious days of amateurism, which the RFU want to bring back. I mean, I just really do not know what's going on. I mean, I think the game, since the rugby league, or the Northern Union, seceded from the Union in 1895, I think rugby has had this inherent dislike of payment of players, although the league, the Northern Union, weren't on about paying players. They were on about just paying broken time for workers who were down the mines, who lost money. So, but they had this objection to professionalism. There have been over the years instances where they've picked on clubs and warned them about payment of players. I think even before the First World War, Northampton, I think, came under the gaze of Twickers. And to me, it's never been open. And I thought when the game went professional in '95, hey, great, because let's put all of this sheer hypocrisy just to one side. Let clubs have their own idea of what's best for them. The destiny is in their hands.
Even more so now that most clubs are businesses.
Yeah, and now we're going back. We're actually telling them, or the governing body are telling them what they can and what they can't do.
It's like a wage cap, isn't it, at each level?
Yeah. Now, I understand the wage cap in the Premiership. I think, and they couldn't enforce it there. There have been murmurings there about certain clubs exceeding it. But I can understand the idea in that You don't want it to go down the path of soccer, whereby you've got about 5 or 6 clubs who dominate the Premiership by virtue of the fact that they pay their players more money. I know Leicester City broke that mould last season, but 2 seasons ago. But on the whole, that's the way it's followed. And I can understand their desire at the top professional end of the game for that not to happen, and I'd fully support it. But coming down the league, starting in National One, and saying you are limited what you can spend, the question I would ask, how are you going to enforce it?
Well, I would ask that question about nearly all of the contents of this document. I think they've probably got it around about right to put the cap on around about level 5, because a lot of clubs, their lives or their livelihood revolves around their revenue and their businesses, which is what they are. Level 6 I think is right. In my opinion, I think paying players is an interference for clubs. Obviously you occasionally get a couple of teams that are paying at the top of a level 6 league, and they run away with it. Well, happy days. If that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. But from inside a club point of view, the paid players, does it buy you loyalty? Is it really sort of part of the community game? I think they've got it about right at level 5, where level 6 and below, it really does become a community game. It's not all about the game, it's about the whole experience. So I think they've got it about right. And they've introduced some quite harsh measures. They've defined material benefit. So stash, assistance with travelling and that sort of stuff. And they've really thrown it onto the clubs to make declarations to prove they're not paying and to submit accounts and all that sort of stuff. How are you going to enforce it? You're going to have to set up a whole new department at the RFU.
Well, exactly, and who's going to pay for that? Well, we are, the clubs.
Yeah.
All of the clubs will pay for that, and there will be more money taken out of the grassroots game.
Yeah.
This is why I think it's just a nonsense. Let the clubs, if the clubs wish to spend money, let them do it. There are a series of balances and checks in place. If your club, if you wish, for instance, to pay your players, but the membership does not feel that to be appropriate, they can call an emergency AGM and stop you doing that. It's as simple as that. If you have a benefactor who wishes to step in and pay the players, again, the club can actually decline that assistance. It's in the hands of the clubs. If they want to take a chance and spend money, if they feel they have a sustainable income, or if there is a benefactor who would like to see them rise up the leagues, I'd say, best of luck. That would be my opinion.
It's a massive decision for community clubs. I mean, my budget for running rugby from the under 6s all the way up to the men and the ladies, I know what my budget is, and just with some simple maths, if I was to be even-handed with paying my players, if I paid 18 players at say 100 quid a week, I would need my budget again. And where's that going to come from? I mean, it can be very harmful for a club if you overextend yourself.
Well, I think there is. I think there's that. But again, I'll go back to the point, let the clubs make their own decision.
Yeah.
I think the other aspect, of course, is that, you've got to be very careful who you employ. I mean, I would believe for any club, personally, my preference would be to adopt what I'd call a mixed economy, in the sense that you would have your own players coming through. You might be a centre of excellence for the locality you live in, and therefore attract players from perhaps smaller clubs who want to have a try at a higher level. You might wish to have links with local universities or institutes of education and attract players in that way. Obviously you pay them, and then you might want 1 or 2 marquee players, and you balance your books accordingly. But obviously from those players you've got to expect a work ethic. In that contract they've got to know they've got to train, they've got to get into the gym. If they're injured, they've got to look after the rehab process themselves, and they've got to look at lifestyle issues. And I think if you're going to pay something, absolutely,
alcohol,
absolutely, if you're going to pay somebody something, you expect to return. But that is ultimately, I believe, the choice of the clubs. If the club wants to employ what I call the saga player who's really looking just to top up his pension by stepping down the leagues, if you're stupid enough to do that without proper research, then fine, that's what you've done it. I don't think the union have to step in, and I don't really see how they're going to how they're going to manage it. Is this new department, the head there, will Joshua give up his game of golf on a Saturday and go out into the rugby clubs? Perhaps, go looking for brown envelopes in people's pockets, search players.
Yeah.
I mean, how's it all going to
Well,
pan out?
I get it. I understand why they're doing it, and I think some of it is laudable, but I just see it as unenforceable. I really do. And to shove a lot of the responsibility and to make the management of the club ultimately responsible for it, to shove it back down like that, it's sort of like doing half a job. It's putting all the onus back on the clubs again. So it's really strong management, but I haven't got a stick to hit you with, really.
No, absolutely. And again, going back to something we mentioned before, clubs, in the main, the majority of clubs in this country are still run by volunteers.
Yeah.
And here's another bit of paperwork from Twickers.
Well, quite a lot, actually.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
quite a lot of paperwork.
Yeah.
And to sort of threaten, it's not threatening in slap-face obvious terms, but the undercurrent there is threatening you with HMRC if you don't get it right, withdrawal of RFU funding and various other sanctions, which, yeah, they are a very serious threat. But who's going to do it? And if you're going to do it properly.
Well, I think they should tell the club who's going to do it, and I think they should tell the clubs also who's paying for it, okay, and how much all of this is going to cost to enforce these regulations. And the other point I would make about it, and I don't know, perhaps I am looking for, perhaps I am being cynical in some ways, but is it another way really of ring fencing the Premiership and the Championship?
I see what you're saying, yeah.
So that clubs can't afford to go up. You put this cap on them, there's no way they could make that jump, and it's an easy way of doing it, and then you've got the professional game again, and then the rest of us can just go away, just keep out of sight, keep your mouth shut.
I'd never really thought about it like that before. I don't really see that as cynicism. I think that's an interesting take on it, really, to be honest. Just almost saying that, go this far and no further.
Yeah, I mean, it is a way of doing it. Either that, or it is a naive belief in these Corinthian values, which supposedly existed in rugby union, which, as I would question. I would really question.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so would I. No, that's interesting. It's it'd be in my bonnet as somebody operating at sort of like level 6 or 7, but let's just see what happens. I think there certainly needs to be more communication, particularly around how it's going to happen. And of course, we've all got to gear up for this, ready for next blooming season.
A lot to think about, actually,
Yeah.
but also a little more information from HQ on
Yes.
exactly what the cost of this is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you very much for watching this evening. This Saturday, if you're not playing, make sure you get out and you support your community club, get behind them in what can be another exciting league weekend.
And
Thank you.
don't forget Sunday to go and watch the ladies.
Absolutely.